In this bonus Mobility March episode of the Smart Community podcast, Zoe has a fascinating chat with Natalie Malligan, the head of cities for Australia and New Zealand at Uber. This is a short but jam-packed episode, and it's also a perfect follow-up to our previous episode featuring Sampo Hietanen, all about mobility as a service. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I'd recommend you go back and listen to it before this one, because Zoe and Natalie do talk about mobility as a service a bit here, so Sampo's episode will be useful for a bit more context in that regard. In this episode, Natalie shares a bit about how Uber sees the future of transport and some of their projects worldwide, including taking part in the Transport New South Wales Mobility as a Service Challenge and integrating the public transport services in the Uber app in the city of Denver in the US. Zoe and Natalie discuss how Australian consumers and governments are embracing smart concepts and how this has changed over time, as well as why Uber has been so successful in becoming a household name. Natalie explains how Uber views their role in the transport sector and some of their other projects, like the upcoming on-demand aircraft service, Uber Elevate, and the open data platform Movement. Natalie and Zoe finish their conversation on how Uber has changed their approach over the years and the emerging trends of micromobility such as e-bikes and e-scooters. As always, we hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it.
Welcome to the smart community, smart regions, smart towns and smart cities. It's where we live, work and play. With smart communities, the future starts today. Big data, smart mobility, emerging trends galore. The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.
Hello, Natalie. How are you?
Hi, great. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thanks for coming on. Let's jump straight in. And can you tell us about your background and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, so I work at Uber. I'm the head of cities for Australia and New Zealand, and I've been here for about a year and a bit now. So yeah, I'm really passionate, obviously, about mobility and that aspect of smart cities and how people can be connected within their cities. As obviously it's a space that Uber is trying to revolutionize over the last 5 years, and then looking forward as well, looking to what the future will look like.
What sparked your interest in the smart cities or smart community space?
Yeah, I think it's just seeing how much things have changed over the last few years since companies like Uber have started and brought technology into transport, which allows smart cities to be better connected. And I just think it's super exciting as we look forward and we think, you know, in the next 5 years, what's going to happen as different modes of transport become connected, as people start using bikes and scooters, and we see flying cars introduced. There's just so much to be excited about as change is happening so rapidly.
What is a smart city to you?
Yeah, so to me, a smart city is one that is really easily connected, where people can get to employment opportunities, or they can get to cultural events, or they can just very easily and seamlessly get around from A to B.
And why do you think that this concept is so important?
One of the leading indicators of a person's likelihood to be in poverty is their commute time, actually, rather than any other factor. So for people being able to get to places of employment, being able to get to places where there's cultural events and be a part of their community, it's so important for inclusion and prosperity that I think it's just key to our economy and our communities.
How do you think Australia is currently embracing the smart city concept?
Yeah, I think Australians, as in consumers, are really getting behind it. They want their cities to be more connected and to be smarter. And I think we're actually seeing our governments get on board as well. Obviously, in transport industry, it's a state level government area, and we're seeing different governments investing in it in different ways. But just generally, there's a lot of interest in driving change and using technology to make our cities smarter.
From an Uber perspective, what do you see the future of transport looking like?
Yeah, so the first trend that we're seeing and that we're really excited about is what we call mobility as a service. And basically, Uber sees its biggest competitor as private car ownership. And the only really way to challenge that is to make the integration of all other modes of transport way more seamless, because no one mode of transport alone can really challenge the convenience of owning your own car. So over the next 5 years, what we imagine is Uber would love to become the one platform where you could essentially get any kind of transport. You put in that you want to go from your home to work, for example, and you'll be able to pay for everything in the one place. You'll be able to map out your journey in the one place, and it will tell you, jump on a scooter. get to the train station, then maybe get an Uber pool from there to your office. It really, you'll be buying mobility as a service rather than individual transport products. And that's one of the most exciting changes that we see coming over the next few years.
What needs to happen for mobility as a service to become a reality?
So we need, firstly, for governments to get behind it, and we're really starting to see that. So, for instance, Transport for New South Wales have really started to invest in this space. So they've launched a Mobility as a Service challenge, where they're investing in startups and assisting other companies like Uber to create solutions which make mobility as a service a reality. So you need your governments not only backing it, but also allowing the private sector to be the experts in this area and to help them create solutions that work. And then you obviously need consumers who are willing to try and change behavior. It takes a long time to change what we've always done and break habits. So consumers really getting on board and trying different things and using technology to change the way that they move.
Can you tell us about some of the things that are happening worldwide with Uber?
Yeah, so we obviously are launching in the next few years Uber Elevate, which is super exciting. So this is vertical takeoff aircraft. So it's like a helicopter, but it's electric and it's much quieter. You won't be able to hear it from the ground. And eventually it will be self-driving. And these will basically land on the top of buildings, and you'll be able to order it like an Uber and get, say, from Western Sydney to Sydney City in a matter of minutes. So that's one of the things that we're lobbying to get our Australian cities on the launch list, as that's going to launch in the next few years, which is super exciting. We also had the acquisition of Jump, which is the e-bike and e-scooter company, in the last year. So that's something that we're super excited to roll out around the world, and you'll start seeing that popping up in the Uber app. And then, as I said, mobility as a service. So starting to integrate public transport into the Uber app. So a couple of weeks ago, we launched Denver as our first city globally, where you can fully book your public transport within the Uber app, and you'll be able to pay for it in there soon as well. So real integration of all modes of transport in the one place.
So do you see Uber as another public transport option? Like, you consider yourself to be, on the same lines as traditional public transport?
So our aim is to complement public transport. So mass transit, so rail, for example, will always remain the most efficient way to move large numbers of people from one place to another. And we don't aim to compete with that. So we aim to provide solutions that are first, last mile that get people to or from those transport hubs, and also to integrate all of those forms of transport into the one place so that it's more convenient for a person to take that train or to take that bus, because they're able to book and pay the whole of their journey getting to or from that mass transport node within the one app.
Okay, cool. I'm actually heading to Denver soon, so I was keen to see that public transport integrated and trying that out for myself when I'm in Denver. Could you explain how, some of those steps that were required to actually integrate public transport into the app?
Yeah, so it obviously takes a lot of work and collaboration between the local government body and Uber. There's obviously a lot of tech in the back end that requires integration of the different back end systems. So we have large teams of engineers in San Francisco who focus specifically on integration of public transport and transit, and they work directly with governments to do that. And then obviously there's a large piece of engaging the community, so letting people know, marketing, comms, letting everyone know about these changes and how they can access them.
Yeah, excellent. Uber obviously has become, a household name. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on why Uber has been so successful.
I think it's a customer obsession. So focusing on what would make people's lives easier and really continuing to refine and to listen to what customers want and just trying to create the best customer experience possible. And I think that's what we saw with Uber, is that it happened because of the groundswell of support from people wanting it to happen. And governments eventually got on board because they could see that actually the customer service benefits to the public and to making it easier for people to move around. So I think it's just that focus on the customer experience.
We've already touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the other projects and things that you're currently working on?
Yeah, so lots going on all of the time. But yeah, in specifically in cities. So one of the things we just launched is 16 new cities across Australia and New Zealand. So really trying to bring reliable, safe and affordable transport to some of our smaller cities. So in New South Wales, for example, places like Wagga Wagga, Coffs Harbour, Port Macquarie, launching our services there as we've had tens of thousands of people opening the Uber app, looking for our services in these cities, but it hasn't been available. So really enhancing our reach to further parts of Australia and New Zealand, and then really get that one platform situation. So working with Transport for New South Wales to start trying to integrate there. We've been working on their mobility as a service challenge. And then obviously down the track with the Jump acquisition, we'd love to be able to launch some of those products here. So we'll hopefully see that in the next couple of years.
Can you talk to me about data? What's Uber's thoughts about the importance of data?
Yeah, so obviously data, it can be really powerful in helping to plan a city and also understand how people are using existing transport networks. So one of the things we actually have is a platform called Movement. And this is an open data platform that we provide to anyone who's interested. So primarily governments and infrastructure planning bodies. And they can go in there and we provide aggregated data showing how people are using Uber to move around the city. So this can help governments understand travel times, congestion, use of public transport networks, so how people are getting to or from public transport nodes. So we've really tried to adopt an open data policy with governments and infrastructure bodies in order to help that development of new infrastructure and making decisions in the transport space.
That really leads to the next question, which is about integration. How do you think we can better integrate across the different disciplines, governments and industries?
Yeah, so I think it all starts with just an openness of government to work with private industry and to work across departments. And we've really seen over the last few years a massive change in this space. Obviously, Uber's entry into most markets wasn't without controversy, but we've really seen a change in how we've approached things and also the openness of governments to work with us and with other private companies. And I think it just starts with things like the Mobility as a Service Challenge, where the government says, hey, just come and share your ideas with us, and creates those open forums. And then from there, they start to partner on actually designing the solutions. So it's just creating the forums to have that collaboration and getting all of the right people in the room. And we're really starting to see that across Australia and New Zealand.
Can you talk through some of the different steps that you took? And like you said, when Uber first came about, it was, a bit controversial with governments, etc. What are some of the things that you do differently now?
Yeah, so I think Uber has learnt a lot of lessons over the years. And I think one of them is just engagement up front. So just really going to policymakers and talking with them about how we can help their communities and trying to understand their positions and their concerns and jointly trying to find solutions. So it's just definitely a much more collaborative approach that we've taken. And I think that we're also seeing from governments as well, which is exciting.
Yeah, cool. I'm keen to hear some of the emerging trends that you think people aren't talking about enough.
I think it is this mobility as a service. So you've probably seen the launch of Lime, which is a company which Uber is an investor in, with their e-scooters around different areas in ANZ. And it's getting, well, you said not talking about, but I think a lot of people are talking about it. It's just been phenomenal to see the uptake. I was in Auckland recently, and the number of people riding scooters, tradies on the way to construction sites, professional workers on the way to catch their ferry. I think you're going to see a lot more movement in these active modes of transport. So e-bikes and e-scooters, people really leaving their car at home and getting some fresh air and finding their way to commute. I think this is going to revolutionize how people get to and from work.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that micro-mobility? What are Uber's plans in that space?
Yes, we can't confirm any firm plans, but we have acquired Jump Bikes, which has e-bikes and e-scooters, and we are an investor in Lime. It's obviously a big priority for us, and there are plans globally to roll out in different cities, and we're already launched in many different cities. So it is going to be a big area of focus over the coming couple of years, and we think it's a really exciting area.
Yeah, excellent. Well, this has been a great chat. I know it's been a bit of a short one because we know we've got some other things to get to, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm super excited to see how this space develops.
Excellent. Yeah, maybe I'll have to have a chat to you about some contacts globally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I just have one last question, which is how can people connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best forum. As I said, my name's Natalie Malligan. You can look me up on LinkedIn.
Excellent. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on to the Smart Community Podcast.
Thanks, Zoe.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Smart Community Podcast. Show notes for this episode and all other episodes are available on our website, mysmart.community. If you have any questions for us or any of our guests, you can email hello@mysmart.community or find us on the socials. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter @SmartComPod. That's com with 2 M's. If you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating and review at wherever you listen. This really helps us reach more ears, so thank you in advance. As always, I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed making it.
The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.